Welcome to the Razors Inc. podcast with your host, Jonathan Farini. Ever since Charlie Chaplin, or when Orson Welles directed himself in his seminal movie Citizen Kane, actors have often placed themselves behind the camera. But there are also countless times in which directors have come from behind the camera and inserted themselves into their own movies, sometimes as a hidden Easter egg, other times with notable results. So pour yourself a drink, pull up a chair, and hear Jonathan's take on movies, television, and today, directors in the frame. Here's your host, Jonathan Farini.
I'm a cinephile, watching films since the early 60s, my parents' films, not Disney films, and those made before I was born. Back to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, I wasn't so much into silent films. I was a grade school and high school filmmaker. You know, that guy with the Super 8 film, shooting, cutting, producing. I'm an MFA film school graduate and writer of nearly 100 published short fiction stories and writer of this podcast approaching nearly 100 episodes about film, television, and music. I want to make an observation which is long overdue about feature film directors. If it sounds like a rant, I apologize because it's partly rant, but mostly observational and for your own individual consideration. Let's begin. You know, there's something about directors who insist upon appearing in their own films that has always struck me as faintly ridiculous. Not charming, not clever, but ridiculous. Because the moment they appear, they break the spell of the movie, for me at least. You're no longer watching the story, you're watching the director reminding you that they exist. That's my opinion. Take Alfred Hitchcock, the grand patriarch of this habit. He made a ritual out of it. In film after film, there he is, waddling across the street, standing in a crowd, missing a bus, carrying a musical instrument. Always present, but always unnecessary. For instance, in North by Northwest, he appears right at the beginning, running toward a bus that pulls away before he can board. It's played as a joke, but the question lingers, why is he there? He adds nothing to the narrative, for me, nothing to the emotional experience, for me. The story would function perfectly without him. Now I'm talking to you as a writer. And yet, he inserts himself anyways, like a signature scrawled across the canvas. It's as if he's saying, don't forget, this is mine. And once you notice it, you realize, at least I do, it's not about the story, it's about authorship. Now, move to Taxi Driver, directed by Martin Scorsese, one of my favorite films. Scorsese doesn't just cameo once, he appears twice.
I first saw her at Valentine Campaign headquarters at 63rd and Broadway. She was wearing a white dress. She appeared like an angel out of this filthy mess.
The first time he's sitting outside the campaign office, and he watches Sybil Shepherd slowly saunter by. His eyes follow her. There's a kind of voyeurism in the way he watches her. It's very quiet, observant, kind of invasive. Then later, he appears again, and this time it's unforgettable. Remember the scene? He's in the back seat of Travis's cab, and he's ranting, he's sweating, he's unhinged. He's talking about killing his wife, who's upstairs in the bedroom with a lover. He's spewing rage and racial hatred, describing violence in cold, obsessive detail.
Do you see the woman in the window?
Yeah.
You see the woman? So I want you to see that woman because that's my wife. But that's not my apartment. But you know who lives there? Huh? A lives there. And I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her with a .44 Magnum pistol. I have a .44 Magnum pistol. I'm going to kill her with that gun. Did you ever see what a .44 Magnum pistol would do to a woman's face? Just blow her right apart. That's what it can do to her face. Now, did you ever see what it can do to a woman's And that you should see. That you should see what a .44 Magnum is going to do to a woman's you should see.
The film was released in 1976, and I was in high school. And I saw the film upon its release in Westwood, California, outside my future film school, UCLA, and asking myself, why is he in this cameo? Particularly this cameo. I don't think any director would attempt or even consider this scene today, whether the director's in the film or not. It's disturbing, but here's the thing. It doesn't need to be him. Any actor could have played that role. In fact, it might have been better if someone else had. I often wonder if somebody didn't get to Marty and say, this is 1976. You may want to not be espousing this type of language and hatred. But he went ahead and shot himself doing it. Because when you recognize Scorsese, the illusion fractured. You stop seeing a character and you start seeing the director indulging himself, stepping into his own pathology. Again, I'm surprised somebody didn't go to Marty and say, you may not want to play in this scene. He became part of the spectacle instead of its creator. And then there's my favorite, Francis Ford Coppola in Apocalypse Now, where he's playing the newsman and the troops are marching by, and he says,
Keep going. It's for television. Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera. Just go by like you're fighting. Like you're fighting. Don't look at the camera. It's for television. Just go through. Go through. Just go by. Keep going.
That one, I must tell you, I appreciate. And then there's Quentin Tarantino, who arguably takes this impulse even further. In Pulp Fiction, he plays Jimmy. That homeowner whose house becomes an emergency cleanup site after the accidental shooting. But Tarantino isn't subtle. He doesn't disappear into the role. He draws attention to himself, his voice, his rhythm, his physical presence. It just screams, this is Quentin Tarantino.
Knock it off, Julie.
What?
I don't need you to tell me how good my coffee is, okay? I'm the one who buys it. I know how good it is. When Bonnie goes shopping, she buys I buy the gourmet expensive stuff because when I drink it, I want to taste it. But you know what's on my mind right now? It ain't the coffee in my kitchen. It's the dead in my garage.
Oh, Jimmy, don't even worry
Well,
about
no,
it.
listen to me. Don't think about anything. I want to ask you a question. When you came pulling in here, did you notice a sign out in the front of my house that said dead storage?
Jimmy, you know I ain't seen no shit.
Did you notice a sign in the front of my house that said dead storage?
No, I didn't.
You know why you didn't see that sign?
Why?
Because it ain't there, because storing dead ain't my business. That's why.
Again, the story doesn't need him. It's not improved by his presence, in my opinion. If anything, it pauses so he can exist inside it. Yeah, that's my opinion. And you begin to wonder, is this storytelling or is this vanity? Hey, you're sitting at the top of the cinematic ladder. It's your film, so it's your call, but remember, it's somebody else's money. Fortunate for these directors I've described and will discuss shortly, I wasn't writing the checks as executive producer or studio chief because none of this would fly for me. Now, what's interesting is that Stanley Kubrick, who was in many ways the most disciplined and controlled director of them all, tried to catch the tour of his memorabilia when it's out and about. I had the pleasure of seeing it in San Francisco, and you'll see the attention to detail that I'm alluded to earlier. He doesn't physically appear in his films, but he inserts himself symbolically. For instance, in Lolita, there's that infamous sign when Lolita's mother, Shelley Winters, is dropping her at summer camp called Camp Climax. Let me repeat, Camp Climax. It's not subtle, it's not elegant. It's shouting at you. And Kubrick was not a stupid man. He understood nuance. He understood restraint. So why include something so obvious? It's like underlining a sentence 3 times. It suggests a lack of trust, not in himself, but in the audience, as if he felt compelled to hammer the metaphor into place so no one could miss it. Well, no one missed it, Stanley. It's heavy-handed, and it raises the same fundamental question to me. Why? Why do directors feel the need to step into their own work, physically or symbolically, when it adds nothing? Because it does add something, but not to the story. Kubrick repeats this impulse we discussed in Lolita at the very beginning of Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. It's at the very beginning of the film where we watch this extended aerial refueling sequence, and there's no mistaking it's staged as a visual metaphor for intercourse. It's slow, deliberate. It's a mechanical coupling. It's sustained connection. And it's all rendered with such obvious symbolic intent that, it feels redundant in a film whose themes of masculine insecurity, technological dependence, sublimated sexual anxiety, they're already expressed far more brilliantly through character and dialogue. In both cases, the metaphors are not wrong, but they are just unnecessary. My thesis is as follows. I believe it adds something to them, the director. Consider M. Night Shyamalan. He appears in nearly every one of his films, sometimes briefly, sometimes prominently. In one case, he plays a writer whose words will literally shape the fate of humanity.
I don't know who you are, but you did something to me. My thoughts. Everything became clearer. The fears that were muddling my thoughts just went away.
Do you wish to know your future? A boy in the Midwest of this land will grow up in a home where your book will be on the shelf and spoken of often. He will grow up with these ideas in his head. He will grow into a great orator. He will speak and his words will be heard throughout this land and throughout the world. This boy will become leader of this country and begin a movement of great change.
Think about that. He casts himself as the individual whose writing will save the world. That's not Cameo anymore. That's self-mythology. Let's not be polite. It's ego, in my opinion. Then there's Peter Jackson, who appears throughout The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and its sequels, standing in the background, chewing on food, dressed as a peasant, a soldier, a bystander. These appearances are brief, but they're intentional. He wants to exist inside the world he created, not outside it, inside it. And you can almost understand the temptation. If you spent years building a universe, controlling every detail, shaping every moment, maybe there's a psychological need to cross over to inhabit it, if only for a few seconds. But that doesn't mean it improves the film. Roman Polanski does something even stranger in Chinatown. He appears as the thug who slashes Jack Nicholson's nose.
Hold it there, kitty cat. Hold it.
Hello, Claude. Where'd you get the midget?
You're a very nosy fellow, kitty cat, huh? You know what happens to nosy fellows? Huh? No? Wanna guess? Huh? No? Okay. They lose their noses. Next time you lose the whole thing. Cut it off and feed it to my goldfish. Understand? Understand?
I understand, kid.
I understand.
Think about that symbolically. The director wounds his own protagonist. It's an act of dominance, a declaration of control, maybe. It's not just the story. He's physically asserting power inside it. Mel Brooks does it also in Blazing Saddles, breaking the fourth wall entirely. And in my opinion, collapsing the film into absurdity. Woody Allen goes even further in Annie Hall, where he doesn't just cameo, he builds the entire film around his own persona, his anxieties, his insecurities, his worldview.
There's an old joke. Two elderly women are at a Catskill Mountain resort, and one of them says, "Boy, the food at this place is really terrible." The other one says, "Yeah, I know, and such small portions." Well, that's essentially how I feel about life. Full of loneliness and misery and suffering and unhappiness, and it's all over much too quickly. The other important joke for me is one that's usually attributed to Groucho Marx, but I think it appears originally in Freud's Wit and its relation to the unconscious. And it goes like this, I'm paraphrasing. I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member. That's the key joke of my adult life in terms of my relationships with women.
The film becomes an extension of himself. But in Woody Allen's case, I think that's just his filmmaking shtick. You expect it. And then there's Spike Lee, who appears prominently in Do the Right Thing. His presence isn't accidental. He's part of the moral architecture of the film, so to speak.
Can I talk to you for a second? Pino, who's your favorite basketball player?
Magic Johnson.
Who's your favorite movie star?
Eddie Murphy.
Who's your favorite rock star? Prince. You're a Prince fan.
Boss, Bruce.
Prince.
Bruce.
Pino, all you ever talk about is this and that. And all your favorite people are so-called
It's different. Magic, Eddie, Prince. I'm not I mean, they're not black. I mean, let me explain myself. They're not really black. I mean, they're black, but they're not really black. They're more than black. It's different.
It's different?
Yeah, to me, it's different.
He's not observing the story. He's living inside its argument about racial injustice. And yet, even here, you could argue that the director is inserting himself into a space where he doesn't strictly need to be. So why do they do it? Is it ego? Yes, partly. But it's also something deeper, in my opinion, and in an attempt to bandage the wounded egos of the directors I've thrashed, here you go. Film directing is a strange profession, to say the least. You exert enormous control over something, and then you disappear. Your work is everywhere, but you are nowhere. You're lucky if you're on stage being handed an Oscar. The audience experiences your decisions, but they never see you. You're a ghost. And perhaps the cameo is a way of resisting that invisibility, of saying, I was here, present, embedded in his own creation. And that, I think, is the truth of it. These cameos don't improve the film. They don't strengthen the narrative. They don't deepen the emotional experience, but they serve the director, not the audience. They are signatures, fingerprints. They're declarations of the director's existence, in my opinion. You could remove them and the films would function exactly the same, perhaps even better, because the illusion would remain intact, not polluted by the director's physical presence, their personality, their persona, their look. Because cinema at its best is kind of like hypnosis. And the cameo is the moment the hypnotist taps you on the shoulder and says, don't forget, I'm the one doing this. It breaks the dream. And once the dream is broken, you never fully return to it. That's my experience. So yes, ego plays a role. But more than ego, it's really authorship. And this I can understand. It's ownership. It's saying, I made this. And maybe even insecurity. Because to create something powerful and then remain completely invisible requires a kind of humility that not every director possesses. And so they step into the frame, not because the film needs them, but because they need the film. That's the paradox of the director's cameo. In my opinion, it adds nothing, and yet it reveals everything. Until I see you next time, please leave behind a soft footprint, and class is dismissed.
And while not a director of the superhero movies, a tip of the hat has to go to Stan Lee, founder of Marvel Comics, who you will see in virtually every movie from the Marvel Comics universe. And from what I know, it's never been about his ego. Rather, it's always the director's choice to include the legendary creator of Spider-Man, the X-Men, and others. And that acknowledgement, that salute, may be the best compliment of all. You've been listening to the Razors Inc. podcast with Jonathan Farini. Be sure to check out Jonathan's collection of fiction at jonathanfarini.com. Also, look for Jonathan's latest short story, Two Black Dresses, a touching story that reminds us of the big impact from seemingly small acts. Two Black Dresses has just been published in the latest edition of Borderless. You can find Two Black Dresses at borderlessjournal.com or at jonathanferrini.com. You can also drop an email anytime to razorsincpodcast@gmail.com.